BOPIE wants me to cut a piece of lab-created sapphire into a 7x9 oval shape to fit into this 14-karat white gold ring, which is accented with diamonds. This is another calibrated cut where I need to be very close to the length and width. I need a 7x9 millimeter, or the gemstone won't fit into this ring because the diamond surrounding the center stone doesn't give us much wiggle room. I enjoy cutting designs by the late Jeff Graham, so since BOPIE needs a sapphire cut into an oval design, I thought it'd be a great time to test cut one of Jeff's designs called Rainbow. Now, I have cut this design, but it's been a very long time, and I didn't make any video of cutting it. So I'll cut it again this time, and I'll first cut it using Mexican Opal to see what BOPIE thinks of the design. And then if she approves, I'll cut it in sapphire. Plus, off camera, I have spent the last couple of weeks cutting through all of my inventory of Mexican Opals because I've amassed quite a bit of inventory and over the couple of decades, and I want to get rid of or work through and get all of my inventory out. I'm trying very hard to cut more than I buy, but as all you rockhounds know, that's very difficult. So I showed you in a previous video how to go back in time on the internet to Jeff's old, now gone website to retrieve all of the 24 or so designs that Jeff put into the public domain, including Rainbow. Here's a link to that video if you're interested. There are also many articles written by Jeff on that site, which you may want to read and download, as he was a prolific writer on the topic of gem cutting. This Mexican Opal, and it's kind of an oval shape, so I'll use this one on my project. And it weighs in at 10.385 carats. And this is a Mexican Opal, and it weighs in at 10.105 carats. And it's kind of, what I need is an oval, so I'm kind of an oval shape. So pretty close. I'll use this for my project. So eventually I want to cut one or maybe two pieces of this lab-created sapphire into 7x9 ovals, which are very small compared to this slab, using the rainbow design for a ring that BOPIE has, and she wants sapphire to be the centerpiece for it. Now, this slab that I have, I worked directly with the lab which created it, as I needed for another project that I'm working on, a very relatively thick stone. It's a big stone that I'm going to cut. So I needed a thick slab of lab-created sapphire. Stay tuned for that project, but it's been a while that I've been working on it, so it's not going to be anytime soon, but it's coming. Now, this slab was created in what's called the pooled method, or the Krzyzewski, and I butcher the name every time, method. This method is a lot more expensive. The rough is a lot more expensive than the flame fusion method, by which sapphire can also be created in a lab. And the flame fusion method produces what are called boules. And a boule kind of looks like a candle. And for corundum, it has to be cut in half because there's internal pressure. So you can buy half boules of corundum, of sapphire, but that wouldn't work for the special project that I'm working on because of the limited size of a boule or half boule. It's just not thick enough for what I needed. And also, a unique problem with boules of flame fusion for blue sapphire is that with corundum, with flame fusion, they create corundum of every color of the rainbow. But for the blue, it's kind of weird that the outer skin of the boule, or the rind, is blue, and the center comes out clear. Now, I've been told that you can heat it and kind of color the center part, but you're still going to end up with kind of color zoning, and again, so it wouldn't work for the special project that I'm working on. So I ended up, for my upcoming project, no color zoning, and I needed a thick piece. So worked with the lab, and they were willing to cut the slab to the thickness that I needed. Unfortunately, I had to buy the whole slab, so I have plenty of rough left of this beautifully blue-colored sapphire. So I'm going to trim off a couple pieces for BOPIE'S ring after I test the rainbow design out, and see if BOPIE likes that design. Wow, that's a lot of work just for cutting for this one ring for BOPIE, isn't it? Okay, to put our Mexican Opal into our spindle of our Ultratech to cut the rainbow design, what we want is the short side of the oval to be on the 96 and 48 teeth of the index, and long-wise, the long part of the oval to be at the 24 and 72 teeth. So then we'll just set our DOP retention screw in place, tighten it up, and we're ready to start cutting our rainbow. So the first two cuts I make are with the 3 tooth and the 51 tooth, and I cut those because they're on opposite sides, and I cut it till I reach pretty much a center point. I don't have to be exact center point because I'm going to go over it with other laps later and I'll get it closer. So that's about as far as I want to go. And that's because the first line of instruction on the pavilion, it says to cut at an angle of 39.02 degrees, and you cut the 3, 9, 15, 21 all the way around, and the opposite of the 3 is the 51. So I start with those two facets to get everything lined up, and then when I bring those to a center point, then I cut the rest of the index teeth on that tier. Okay, so I've gone around our stone with the first row, the first tier of instructions, and it's not quite a center point, but that's okay because I'll use again different laps. And I started, because this is Mexican Opal, I started with my 600 grit topper. I don't need anything rougher than that on Mexican Opal. So I do have the basic pavilion preform now, and then there's also another row that is going to go over here at the very culate, the 10, 11, and 12 row of instructions. So I'm not worried too much about cleaning that little piece up. It'll get cleaned up, like I said, either by going through the finer laps or by when I do the 10, 11, and 12 row. Now the next thing to do is to preform, set our width. So the next one is the 4650 and the 94 and 2 teeth, which will set the width. It's critical that you set the length and width to match the length and width ratio of the instructions. If you don't hit the length and width just right, you're going to have problems cutting and polishing the stone. Your girdle is going to look like a mountain range. So the next step is at 90-degree angle, we cut the width, kind of preform it with our 600 grit topper. So for me, when I'm cutting my girdle facets especially for an oval like this one, I find it very useful to use my Sharpie, my permanent black marker. Use the permanent ones, which are oil or alcohol can remove, but water won't. Don't use the water-based ones where water will wash it away, or your whole thing will get washed away. So by making a Sharpie mark on my second row of girdles, I just want to grind the girdle in until it comes up with this facet and matches it. So by drawing a Sharpie, I can see that that's right. It ground right to there, which is right at that facet line on the pavilion. And same with this other one on this is the other facet. So there's two on each side. So by my Sharpie mark, help me walk in that girdle facet to stop right where I need it. You don't have to, but I find I lose track of which pavilion facets I'm trying to line up with without my Sharpie. And again, it's no problem because if you want to remove the Sharpie mark, alcohol removes it. But of course it'll go away when I do continue grinding with finer and finer laps. So that's the way I do it anyway. Okay, I finished polishing up our oval for our Mexican Opal and polished right up. So now I'll transfer the stone and cut the upper half. Okay, our second Mexican Opal, I'm ready to start polishing it, and this inclusion here in the bottom, that's not going to be a problem. That'll actually be the top, and after I make a small girdle here, this will cut out. And the good thing about using Mexican Opal in a design, for me, when I want to test out a design, is it cuts and polishes so quick and easy. I only used 3 laps, a 600 grit topper, 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and then polish it right up with cerium oxide on a tin lamp. So I'll go ahead and finish polishing the bottom half, the pavilion of our second Mexican Opal. Okay, I finished polishing the bottom half of our second Mexican Opal using a tin lap and cerium oxide. So now I'll transfer our two stones and cut the upper halves. Okay, so for putting our gemstone back into the spindle of our machine after we've transferred the dot from the pavilion, the bottom half, to the crown, the upper half, you refer to your diagram. Remember when we first put our stone into the dot, we wanted the short side of the oval at the 96 and 48 teeth, and lengthwise the long side of our oval at the 24 and 72 teeth. So now we want to put our stone back in and make sure it's aligned properly in the machine. So there's no 48 and 96 teeth on the girdle. What there is if you look at set of instructions number 2, there's two girdle facets right along the 48 and 96 teeth, and I'll show you that on the instructions. So set of instruction number 2 says to cut at 90 degrees at the 94 and the 2 tooth, and the 46 and the 50 tooth. So 46 and the 50 tooth, and 94 and 02 tooth, depending on which way you put the top in. It's these 4 facets right here. So you have to be careful to put it in your machine so that you don't end up with these 2 facets or these 2 facets, but these 2 facets lined up. So I'll show you that in the machine. Again, we want to put it in with either the 94 and 2 teeth or the 46 and 50 teeth lined up between the 48 and 96 teeth in our index. Okay, so what we want to do is line up our girdle, and again the facets along the girdle were the short side of our oval. The nearest to the center was the 2 and 94 teeth and the 46 and 50 teeth. So that's the 94 tooth, your center tooth at 94. There's 93, 94, and your 2 is right there. So that's the 2 tooth is this facet, and the 94 is this facet. So you want to make sure that those are the facets that we're working with, not, you don't have it backwards or anything. So you can either do the 2 and 94 teeth, or you can flip your index wheel to the other side and work on the 46 and 50 teeth on the opposite side. So with either the 46 for the 2 or the 94, or the 46 and 50, .46 is there, and 50 is that tooth. So 50 is the tooth on this side of center, and the 46 is the tooth on the facet on this side of center. For me, I'd rather work on the 46 and 50. That way, it just puts the dop retention screw up here on top of the machine, so that when I do align my girdle, I can just tighten that screw with my Allen wrench by going around the top instead of the bottom. Works either way, it's just a matter of preference. So let me line up the facets and check to see that we're in alignment. Okay, so at the 50 tooth, the the flat facet there should lie flush with our perfectly calibrated block, which I put on my flattest lap. And in my case, my flattest lap is my ceramic lap. So you set the facet till it's flat at 90-degree angle, and you raise it up, and you're looking right here. And I'm looking with the 10 power magnification, so that all along that facet, the stone breaks the plane of that calibrated block all along the facet at the same time. At that point, you're in alignment, and you can set the Doppler tension screw and no issues. So again, what you're trying to do is break the plane along that bottom facet. Make sure that facet is flush against that stone, that calibrated piece of metal, and as you raise up your quill, that it breaks the plane all along that knot, not kind of at one side of the angle and then not the other, or the other way. So when it's in alignment, again, you set the Doppler tension screw, and you're ready to start cutting the upper half of our stone. And before you do that, what you need to do is check to make sure that the other facet is indeed the 46. So you turn your index to the 46 index, and you make sure that that's the next facet on the other side of center. It's very easy to get them misaligned by one facet, and then you're off, and then it'll be a catastrophe. So check both those facets, and after you set Doppler tension screw, you can check the other facets on the other side. They should all be perfectly aligned. The other thing to watch is to make sure that when you put your super glue in, that none of it went down the side of the stone and covered the side at all, or else you're not going to get a true reading. You have to go to a different set of facets. It's not a problem, just go to different facets and check it. Okay, I finished polishing up the upper half of our gemstone. It didn't take much, it just polished very quickly with cerium oxide on a tin lap. So now I'll cut the upper half of our second stone, then I'll cut the tables, and we'll be done with these two gemstones. And I finished polishing up the upper half of our second gemstone. So now I'll set both of the stones up and cut and polish the table with only one having to set up one time. So, and I'll cut it. I probably am going to need my 600 grit topper just a little bit, and then go to 3000 grit diamond on a bat lap, and then the tin lap with cerium oxide, I'm sure will polish that table right up. Okay, the table's polished right up, and like I said, I used the 600 grit topper just quickly to take off a little bit of the rough, then the 3000 grit diamond on the bat lap to preform everything very nicely, and then just a few swipes with the my tin lap and cerium oxide, and it's all polished up. So we'll set these two stones in acetone to melt, dissolve the super glue, then we'll send them off to BOPIE, weigh and measure them, and BOPIE will have two more Mexican opals. So I showed you the beautiful 14 karat white gold ring accented with diamonds that BOPIE has, and she wants an oval centerpiece of approximately 7 by 9 millimeters, and she wants the centerpiece to be lab created sapphire. So I decided to test out an oval design called Rainbow, as I think it'll work great for this ring. And also, since I want to deplete my old inventory of Mexican opal rough, I decided to cut a couple pieces of Mexican opal into this design and see what BOPIE thinks of it. In my opinion, the design it's not one of the easiest to cut. Ovals are not, but it is a design that any cutter who has a few gemstones under their belt would have no problem cutting. The key is to ensure you hit that length to width ratio, and for the oval design, you've got to do that. If you don't, if you're cutting a step cut, square or rectangle, you don't have to worry about the length to width ratio. If you're cutting around, there is no length to width, it's 1. But For ovals, you got to hit it right. And if you don't, instead of a nice level girdle, you'll see that you've got a girdle that looks like the Rocky Mountains. So now that I have test cut the design of Mexican Opal, BOPIE approves the design. In the near future, I'll cut this design in sapphire for BOPIE'S ring, and I'll show you how I do that. If you do cut this gemstone, any gemstone with this design, please drop me a note on Facebook. Let me know how it turns out for you. And again, photos always welcomed. And now, as always, happy fasting, everyone.